Star Trek is back, and so are we, and it's going to take the powers of the Q to help us figure out what exactly happened on this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. Let's see if we can make it work on All Hail RETCON. Star Trek Discovery just finished airing, and here are my notes that I wrote down while watching the episode, so here it goes. When I turned on CBS All Access, I was very excited to see at 8:30 p.m. Oprah. Not too sure how she got on the screen. It was very funny that it started at 8:48 instead of 8:30. It made for a comedic moment, but I'm glad still that it wasn't preempted altogether, so it was a little bit of a scare to start us off with. In the episode's opening voiceover, when we hear the mission log, we find out that Star Trek Discovery starts on May 11th, 2256. To put things in perspective, the good old USS Enterprise went into commission in the year 2243, commanded by Robert April. Robert April commanded the ship for 9 years until Captain Christopher Pike took over in the year 2254, which means in Star Trek Discovery, the Enterprise has been flying around for around 13 years. It might be able to make an appearance. The main character of Star Trek Discovery is Michael Burnham. And as we can see, she was raised on Vulcan and has a lot of Vulcan traits, but she is actually not the first human raised on Vulcan. What are other examples of humans raised on Vulcan? You have to go to video games to find out. In Star Trek Hidden Evil, which was a sequel to Star Trek Insurrection, Ensign Sovok, although with a Vulcan name, is actually human. He's raised by Vulcans, and similar to Michael Burnham, can also do the Vulcan neckpin. Now, I'm not sure if that video game is part of Star Trek canon. I hope it's not, because the game, similar to Star Trek Insurrection, is terrible. But if it is, that's another really cool homage that Star Trek Discovery makes to Star Trek history. In this first episode of Star Trek Discovery, the Klingons are talking about prophecies, and Klingons and prophecies are no stranger to the Star Trek franchise. Klingon prophecies that appear in such episodes as Rightful Heir in Star Trek Next Generation, Prophecies in Star Trek Voyager, and the Sword of Kahless in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. We also see Michael Burnham on Vulcan in some sort of learning sphere. We see that learning sphere appear twice. Once in the reboot of Star Trek, and kind of a version of it in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. Also something that's new yet not, is we see at multiple times characters communicating with other characters using holographic communication. Now normally, you just see people talking via view screens. However, this was introduced in Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode For the Uniform. It was done for dramatic content. It made the episode more intimate, opposed to just a big view screen. So although we have seen it before, it has yet to happen yet in the future, so it's kind of new old technology, but it's still a nice homage. Another weird homage too is at one point Michael Burnham asked to target phase cannons on a target. Now phase cannons were used in Star Trek Enterprise, but by now, in theory, ships should be using phasers. So I know at one point she didn't want to destroy the ship, just give the impression they wanted to attack it. So maybe they still have phase cannons, and it doesn't pack a punch as much as a phaser does. So again, it wasn't really meant to destroy them, just to get their attention. There are also some other very interesting shoutouts on the show. We have some characters that look like they're out of other series. One character kind of looks like Lobot from Empire Strikes Back. Another person on the grid kind of looks like he was from Daft Punk. Maybe he is from Daft Punk. I'm glad that Daft Punk made it into the future. And also on that Klingon ship, we have someone that could technically be a Targaryen, since they're fireproof, so curious to see how that plays out. Dragons in space. One thing that's a little concerning is that it really does have a J.J. Abrams vibe. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. In fact, I don't even know if it takes place in the Kelvin universe or not. We do know at one point there will be an episode in the Mirror universe, so perhaps this will straddle different versions of Trek. That might be cool if it tries to bring all continuity together to form one consistent continuity, maybe do some rewriting of history to make things work. What I like is that things aren't necessarily blowing up, things aren't necessarily being shot at, things aren't necessarily flying really fast. There is a certain level of cerebralness going on, there's a certain level of problem solving going on, there's a certain level of waiting going on. So it's not really, although things move pretty quickly, we still don't know what's going on after the first episode, and we have to wait it out. And that I think is pretty cool, that we have to let it breathe. If you remember when Next Generation came out, people that were fans of the original series didn't think it would work. When Deep Space Nine came out, fans of Next Generation didn't think it would work. When Voyager came out, fans of Deep Space Nine thought it wouldn't work. When Enterprise came out, pretty much everyone was scratching their heads, why are we doing a prequel? And it did work to a degree, but it did ultimately get canceled. So when it comes to Star Trek Discovery, I think the most important thing is that based on that first episode, it deserves a chance. It deserves to have it breathe, it deserves to let it play out. So whether it's good or bad, I think it deserves our attention, and let's see where this goes. What are your thoughts about the first show? Post your comments below, and I'd love to hear from you. We're back. Don't go anywhere. We'll be reviewing episode 2 very, very soon. Well, no, actually, you should go. Why don't you subscribe to our channel so that way when we do come back, we'll give you a heads up so you don't have to wait around. In the meantime, thanks for coming. We'd love to hear what you think about the episode. We'll see you real soon on All Hail RETCON.